007.
What up, what up, what up, everybody? It's your man Dame D, NYDC, two mics up. Here we go again. It's Monday, but this is not your regular Monday night. Uh, right now, we are going into the Halloween season. And tonight, I thought it'd be a little fun to talk a little horror. Going to do a little Horrorween tonight with tonight's guest. And when I say horror, we're going to talk horror films and horror, maybe the impact it may have on culture, society, anxiety. Who knows? Who knows where we're going to go? But I want to, before we even really dive into that, I want to bring tonight's guest here to the stage with me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alonzo Richardson. This brother's right here in the DMV. We had to do this tag team thing here locally. You know what I'm saying? See, he's got his Batman shirt on. I guess tonight I'm gonna be Robin. We're gonna go ahead and make this happen. Alonzo, man, please go ahead and take a minute. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Let us know who you are.
All right, my name is Alonzo. I'm also known as Zoe. I am the host of the Backlook Cinema podcast. Basically, what we do on the show is we talk about movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, a lot of that may not include horror movies, but they are some of the best movies that have been around in cinema. So, uh, I originally started off with my son as a co-host,
Okay.
and I called this show the Backlook Cinema podcast with Zach and Zoe, which is why I call myself Zoe on the show. But then, our schedules kind of conflicted, so he couldn't appear on the show as often as I'd like. So, in lieu of that, I've invited different guests from other podcasts onto my show to basically talk about the films that we love. I let them choose the film, and then we
Okay.
talk about the movies. So
Yeah.
we just have a good time talking about the movies that we just grew up with.
Man, that's pretty awesome. I mean, when I came across it, like we were talking, backstage before we came on, that was the big draw. Trying to find someone, not necessarily horror. I know we're using horror tonight, the horror genre, because it's Halloween and things coming up. But I found it intriguing. Like you said, this was something that you enjoyed with your son, really talking about films that maybe the both of you enjoyed coming up, and what was that like? Because I mean, I think that had to be a great experience for you as a dad, but also for your son. But what is that, has that been like, even though you don't do it together as much anymore? Like when that first started, like what was that like? What was that feeling like?
Well, the thing was, when I was growing up, we didn't really get an opportunity to go to the movies
uh
like I'd like, right? So, like my
mhm.
parents, we grew up poor. My parents didn't really take us to the movies. Maybe only of like I could count on my fingers how many films that I was taken to. So I wanted to give my son a different experience. I wanted him to go to the movies as often as I wanted to when he was growing up. So he was growing up, we went to the movies a lot, and I realized that I was, he's grown now. He's like 25. So,
Right.
but at the same time, well, actually 26, but at the same time, I still have an opportunity to share some of the movies that I love when I was growing up. So I chose movies specifically that he had never seen before. And he's very resistant, right? So he was like, I don't want to watch those movies. Like, no, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love these movies. And I'm right 99% of the time. He'll love the movies that I present to him, movies that he had seen before. Sometimes he likes it way more than I suspect. Like one time, it was like one of the early movies we did was Hunt for the Red October. No,
Hmm.
yeah, that was it. So
Yeah.
I was like, because this is a suspense thriller, it's
Hmm.
got a lot of techno jargon, it's got a lot of
Right.
drama, and I was originally just going to do straight up action movies like Conan the Barbarian, just go all action all the time, because I know that's where he lives. But I'm like, let me throw this in there. Oh, he was super into that movie, so
That's what's
I
up.
was pleasantly surprised.
I love that. I love to hear that story. Father and son getting the opportunity to bond over movies. And I want to fast forward then, so like we talk about horror movies, and I'm just curious to know, like for you, in the world that we live in today, I think there's a lot of things going on. There's a cultural aspect, in a social aspect. I want to start, your opinion. You know, why do you think horror movies are culturally important?
Well, I think they're culturally important because I think that people want to see the possibility. They want to be thrilled. It's like a roller coaster ride. They
Mm,
they want to they want to be thrilled, but under the cloak of safety. It's similar to what I've heard about people talk about comedy. Like comedy, if taking the statements that a comedian might say point blank, they might seem like crude and mean and nasty, but they're done under the cloak of safety. Like I think that's we I think we need it. I don't know why we need it, but we need to be thrilled. We need to be excited. And it it shows like, well, even really bad horror movies, they do crazy amounts of money, right? So
right, right.
yeah.
That's so true. I agree with you. I think that we do want that exhilarating feeling, that rush, that suspense. You want that. I think some of us deep down inside, even the most safe of us, still have a small smidge of wanting that thrill, to take that risk. And a lot of times we're sitting there yelling, "Don't go in, don't go in," but you really want them to go in, like
Right, right.
So I will agree with you on that. So then sus- on the social side, I think for me, um, the it's very intrusive sometimes, but I think we want that intrusion, right? And we
Hmm.
want to feel that level of anxiety or panic, even though some of us may not really be built for that, right? But I
Right.
think it's something that we crave as human beings. I think it helps us connect though too though. Like you said, when you would go with your son to see a movie, it didn't have to be a horror movie, whether it was a suspense or a drama, there was still, whether it be a small level of anxiety, but there was a connection there. There was something that brought you and your son together, and then that conversation that you had after. I think that's important. But I'm curious to know, that's just my side take. I'm curious to know, you as someone who does, like you said, select films or let your guests select films. What do you feel about horror movies' impact on society?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I will say that horror movies uniquely can you can do that more effectively as a film than you can do it in any other medium. Like you can, it's more effective than reading in a book. It's more
Mm,
effective than watching it on television, and it's more effective than like seeing it as a play. Because
mm,
in a book, you can imagine all sorts of horrible things, but in the movie you
true,
actually see it, right?
true,
So
true, true,
so when
true.
you can actually see the horror, coupled with the music and whatnot, you feel the suspense. But so as far as the impact on society, I would say that because I know that there are a lot of other type of genres or subgenres that have a serious impact. So
Hmm.
like say like shows like CIS have
Yep.
changed the way juries kind of look at evidence in actual trials. Now
True.
juries want to see like the actual forensic evidence like they've seen on television or something like that. Right. So as far as horror,
Hmm.
I think it just um I think that people have come to become dull to some of the
Mm,
more vicious like looks of society. Like it, yeah, like when you see a movie of somebody's guts being torn
hmm.
out or something like that, and so in real life there, I think they can get dull to it, or
Or desensitized, like we can become
desensitized.
desensitized in a way. Yeah, I can
Right,
see
right.
I can see that. And because it's true in that sense though, I will say only not only desensitized, I think we've devolved in the sense that we're now where we see things like that. The first thing we do is we grab our phone and we start taking pictures, right? Nobody's calling 911, or what I'm saying? Like everybody
Right,
wants to
right.
put it on the internet. So I will agree, even in that aspect, things that used to be, I wouldn't say hard, but gruesome to a degree. Somebody breaking their arm or getting cut or whatever it may be. Now we just go straight to the phone and we want to, world star. We want to go viral without, calling for help. So I do agree with you on that. And you brought up a very good point. Like the impact of soundtracks and music in movies. Like, do you really in a horror film, like, is that really the most one of the most still one of the most impactful things that really kind of gets you at the edge of your seat or kind of cringing when you watch horror films today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that's part of the story. You have to have that soundtrack and it has to be on point. It has to be at the point where, you got the string instruments playing and you got to have it playing in such a way that it's tightening the tension or
Right.
that slow piano, beat going. So it's you got to have that in order for it to help heighten the tension, to help tell that story
Tell that
because,
story.
a lot of the times the music is preparing you for the next scene. It's like, okay, this is gonna happen. It's almost like the hook in the song. The hook
Mm,
in the song is telling
you're
you,
right.
okay, we're about to drop some sweet science over here. This is I'm about to tell you something awesome's about to come in this song. That's why
You
the
are the
hook is here.
blood. You're right. And then too, I also think another thing that you said about genres and things like that, and talking about impact on society. Like, I talk. I've had the pleasure to talk to some celebrity actors, and Lawrence Adiz has been on, and he's got a feature film coming out, and he's looking to make it a series. Um, do you care for like these series type um films, kind of along the lines of, I mean, like Jason, what are we on? Like Jason 12 and Hostel or Saw. Like, are you big fans of those? I don't want to call them played out, but those extended play type movies?
I mean, a movie is fine as long as it's good. Like as long as the movies continue to be good, then the sequels are fine. But the problem is that the certain movies they run on tropes, right? So
Mm,
especially if you're dealing with a series, you're dealing with the series is running on the same tropes, and after a while, those tropes get tiring and they feel repetitive. So you
right.
you got to be careful, obviously, of how long you want to do the series. But as like I said, as long as the movies are good, then they can continue to make as many sequels as they want to, and they do.
Yeah.
So
They do.
as long as the money is rolling in, they will
Mm,
continue to make sequels to whatever properties.
so
So
true.
I don't like. After a while, I might check out. I was like, okay, this is. I think I checked out on Friday the 13th at like after 4, like after I
Yeah.
had enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I would say the same thing. I did, like, I want to say the third or fourth. I'm like, okay, look, this is enough. Same thing with Jason. I mean, and I'm being funny, but I want to say, my wife and I were big Halloween fans, and we were sitting, and I want to say it was like Jason 10 or 11, and he was in
Right,
outer space, and I was like,
right, right, right.
wait a minute, how do we go from Camp Crystal Lake to this dude being on a ship? And I was like, okay, too much, too much. So
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
it's
And
overkill.
and full disclosure, horror movie is not my favorite genre, so it's not like I'm not rushing out to see like the newest horror movies. So like they got Halloween ends, and I'm not rushing out to
Right.
see that because I've watched like the first couple of Halloweens. It's like, okay, that's good. I can move on to the next thing. But like I don't necessarily need to be thrilled like that, like the way a horror movie provides. But I do like certain like the more thrilling aspects of horror. So I have seen some of the newer horror movies that have come out lately, just not
Okay.
the big franchise horror movies
Franchise
that
ones.
yeah.
I can dig it. Well, look. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna take a pause for the call because right now we know Zoe is not a big fan, or is like horror movies is not his first go to. But we still got to ask. What does he rate them? We're gonna talk about. He's got three favorites. We're gonna get into all of that. But we're gonna take a pause for the calls as we go ahead and take a second to shout out our advertising sponsors here at Two Mics Up, who have been a huge help to our continued success and growth. So don't go away. We'll be right back after we take this short commercial break. right, everybody, we back. It's your man Dame DNYDC, and tonight's special guest, my brother Zoe Richardson, right here from the DMV, live and direct in the studio or cross air, however we doing it nowadays with modern technology. But you know what I mean. So look, we've been talking about you know horror movies, the cultural impact, the social impact, franchise movies. And Zoe's been kind enough, so he's let us know, he's not, horror movies are not his number one go-to. But I mean, I would be remiss still to ask. I mean, the man, he he does his own podcast where he watches movies and lets his guests pick them. But I gotta ask Zoe, like, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rate horror films? I'm gonna say it's probably low. We'd be lucky to get a 5 out of you.
No, I recognize horror movies are like awesome. Like
Mhm.
that I would be remiss in saying that they would be like low on anybody's scale, right? Because I might say that, or they're not like number one on my list, but I do recognize that they're extremely important because of how popular they are in terms of their popularity. So, like for me, I would think it's like a two, really.
Okay. Okay. And that's fair because um I'm gonna be honest. I know like my wife and I, like I say, we're big horror fans when it comes to Halloween. Now we're not big on Halloween per se, but we do like to have some scary movies and some popcorn to spend our Halloween weekend and really the month of October. I think you see this Spooktober and all of these other things going on, so we try to find some new classics or some new things to kind of go back and watch. Um, and I would definitely say for us, um, I mean horror would be about an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. It rates pretty high. A lot of times that's one of our first go-tos, um, sitting around the house. So
Let me
yeah,
interrupt you real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
did I wasn't recognizing which one was the best. Was one the best or was 10 the best?
Oh my, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me clarify. So on a scale of 1 to 10, one being the lowest and 10 being the highest, where would you rate it? I'm sorry, that was totally my
Oh,
fault.
okay. Well, then I'd put it at a 9 then.
Okay, my fault. I was not clear on that. And you see, this is what happens when you don't express and be clear about what it is that you're asking. Thank you, Zoe, for clarifying that for me, man. I do want to ask you too, then, and this is something that I know we talked, or I believe, well, my wife told me that you guys had talking with one of the questions we asked because you said it might change by the time. So I'm just curious, which three, if you had three movies, three scary movies or three horror movies, what are your favorite three? And it can be in any order. It doesn't have to be one, two, any order of your
Okay.
preference.
So it hadn't changed since I talked to her.
Okay.
So um just like any order, Final Destination, 28 Days Later, and The Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Now I have to ask. So Final Destination, I'm good with. I've seen 28 Days Later. Another great film, in my opinion. But the Brotherhood of the Wolf, I've never seen that one.
Yeah.
So without giving the whole story, like just give me a little background. Like, what was that about? I gotta go watch that.
So it's one of my favorites, but like I'm not sure if I can classify it as a full-on horror. Some people might call it an action movie, but it does involve a monster but it's a monster that kills, and you don't really see it for most of the
Ah.
film. So the film is based on the true events of something that happened in France in I want to say the 1600s or the 17th century, somewhere around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a foreign language film that's from France, and I just so happened to catch it. So in this true life incident, there's some type of wolf monster that's going around killing dozens of people over a period of decades. And you had all these French authorities trying to hunt down and kill this monster. They would send famous hunters after this monster. It got so bad that even I think the king of France at one point got involved in
What?
trying to get someone to kill this monster. And there have been a couple of claims that some hunter would come across like, yes, I killed the monster, is this monster wolf, but then the killings would keep coming. So no one's ever sure if they ever killed this monster, but the killings did eventually stop. So this movie is
That's
based
interesting.
on those incidents. It's highly fictionalized, obviously, but yeah, I always really liked it. I don't really know the main actor, but
Right.
the co-star was Mark Dacascos, and that was the main reason for me watching this movie.
I remember when my wife gave it to me, and I'm looking. I'm like, I don't know this movie. uh, Oddly enough, but so it's going to be something that she and I we both decided we're going to go find it, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to sit down and watch it, just because again, it's and this is the beauty of it, and to be able to talk to someone like yourself, you have a vast background of films that are out there. Like you said, it's a foreign film, uh, you know, something that and because it has history in it, or even though it might be fiction, like you said, fictionalized, I still enjoy things that have a little history behind it, that's intertwined with an animal like creature, because I was a big fan of like True Blood and all of that type of stuff. So this would probably be right up my alley. So I'm gonna definitely go look for that one and check it out. Now, me on the other hand, I'm a little probably a little more traditional in the horror sense. Without question, for me, one of the first horror films that I saw as a kid that I probably wasn't supposed to see as a kid, well, not obviously, but for me was The Exorcist. The Exorcist still sits with me to this day. Um, I think that was a great film. The Amityville Horror, only because, well, not only because, mainly because, so I grew up on Long Island, and I grew up not too far from Amityville. So again, it was a childhood thing that when you saw it, and you see the story, and then to come to find out that it was allegedly true, right? Yeah, right. Allegedly true. So that one stuck with me, and I have to say my all-time favorite. And I just watched a remake of this the other night on Hulu. Hellraiser. Clive Barker. I think Clive Barker was a great writer. I thought that was one movie in particular that was brought to life. Sometimes to this day, when I think about the book and I think about the movie, I feel, and people who have said, I feel like my skin is being pulled apart by Pinhead and all of these things. And yeah, it's just one of those things. And I don't know, I just love that film, my favorite film of all time. So with that said, then Alonzo, Zoe, I want to move forward then, and let's talk about you and your podcast. So what else do you have maybe coming up, that you can share and talk about, some guests, some topics, some films that maybe you haven't actually had the opportunity to get into yet, that maybe you want to discuss on your show?
All right. Well, I just dropped a recent episode, and normally I'm watching movies that I already watched and I already liked.
Okay.
But I was challenged by a recent guest. Her name is Beth, and she was on the Made for TV Movie Club podcast, and she challenged me to go and watch what's The Lost Boys. So I was,
Great
and
movie.
it's one of those movies that I always wanted to watch, but I just never got around to watching it. So I just dropped the episode that features her as a guest, and we talked about it. It was actually a really great movie. And then I did a recent episode with a man named Rocky, and he has two podcasts. One is that features guests where he talks about their fandom, and it's called Part of My Fandom. And another he talks about a video game called Audio Odyssey. And we had watched The Naked Gun, The Files of the Police Squad, right? And so
That was
that was recently recorded, and this that I'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. And then I also have an interview coming up with a professional wrestler. His name is Marlo, but he professionally as a wrestler, he was known as the American Prodigy.
okay.
And we together we watched The Karate Kid, so we're gonna
Wow.
talk about that movie. So yeah, just a lot of classics from the 80s and 90s and
That's
whatnot. So
pretty dope, man. And so when you say watch it, like, so do you guys sit together, like, kind of like this, and you watch the film together, or do they watch, like, you watch the films in advance to have the conversation on the show?
right, we just watched the films in advance, and then so that our memories are fresh in the movie. Because a lot of these movies I hadn't seen in a while. There was one particular movie I can't remember off the top of my head, but it happens with a lot of these movies sometimes. So, it's a movie that I watched, and I know I loved it when I watched it, but I hadn't watched it since that initial viewing,
Mhm.
so I had forgotten all like the plot elements and everything. The only memory as I had is that it was that I had seen it and maybe a couple of scenes from it. And so it's like, so watching the movie is like watching a brand new movie all over again.
Yeah,
So it's like,
takes you
oh
back.
yeah, this movie is good.
Yeah. Well, I will say The Lost Boys is a classic. One of my favorites as well. Great movie. So I want to thank you so much, my brother, for sitting here with me tonight, man, and really just having some fun, sharing a little bit about yourself, sharing a little bit about your show. And before I go, I do want to allow you, please take a moment to share your social media. Our audience can go out and support you as well online, because we really want to make this connection, man. We're both here in the DMV, and I really want to connect bridges, man, and really work together cross platforms. This is how things work, and I just want to make sure that our audience can go ahead and get in touch with you and check you out and support you as well.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So they can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Backlick Cinema Podcast, and they can find me on Twitter or TikTok at Backlick Cinema. So those are all of my main social medias. They can also write me at fanmail@backlickcinema.com, and of course, they can find the Backlick Cinema Podcast pretty much anywhere they listen to podcasts.
Y'all heard it right here, ladies and gentlemen. I will make sure that we put all of that information in the notes for the show so that you, whether you're watching this online, or with Two Mics Up on Mogul TV, because that's where we are right now, season 4. If you're still watching this on YouTube, hey, that's cool. I appreciate it. But make sure you go ahead, you go down there, you hit that bell so you can be notified by all the newest content coming to you from me here at Two Mics Up. Drop us a thumbs up, thumbs down, leave me a comment. Let me know. Hey, all criticism is good or bad. I welcome it. Thank you for watching. You know how we do, ladies and gentlemen, at this time. You can, before I even get to that point, I do want to say we do have some things coming up. And I'm just talking right now, Zoe, because I'm going to edit this out. And I'm just going to go ahead and go into my thing and close out. So, like we do at this time, ladies and gentlemen, follow Two Mics Up online, www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us across our social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. And like we always do at this time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay blessed. Mics out. 007.